Hi, I'm Bridget Wakefield. I'm with Gorski Reeves Deck Architects, the architect for Blue Ridge School District. And today I'm going to be showing you the elementary school that many of you are voting on a referendum whether or not to put an addition on the junior high for the elementary school. So we're going to give you a tour in case you can't make it to one of our tours. So you may recognize this is the elementary school. We're going to show you a little bit of the exterior of the building since it's about to rain on us. And what we'll show you out here really fast is the foundation. You'll see a little bit what's going on inside of the building but because of the foundation, but essentially foundations are made out of concrete and steel. The bars you see down here are the steel. They can't do their job if they don't have concrete around them. They don't have anything to grab onto. And so you'll find out on the inside of the building that the floor slopings and things are happening there that obviously we don't want to see. You'll also see there's a bunch of rusting and things going on the exterior of the building. This whole exterior wall is framed kind of like a big window system. So once you need to replace part of it, you're basically replacing the entire exterior of the building. You'll see that all over the building. Same condition of everything going on out there. You'll see inside the gymnasium once we get in there that there's a lot of structural movement going on. That means there's a lot of things going on inside that will show you some breakage is happening. But you can see how the water's getting in the wall. You can see the discoloration on the brick. There's a bunch of mortar missing. There's a bunch of stuff that I could bore you with that us architects try and look for. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of movement going on. There's a lot of water that's gotten inside the building. So we'll go inside the building now and we'll show you we'll go through the building. We'll show you the playground first and do the whole outside, and then we'll walk you around the building. Okay, we are actually outside and we're showing you the playground. There's nothing terribly wrong with the playground surface, but you can see that it's getting old. What we did was we wanted to look at the building and see what needed to be done within the next 10 years. And of course, within the next 10 years, this whole surface really needs replaced. You can see where the gravel's worn down and the asphalt's cracking. You can see a little bit of the exterior building out here in the condition that it's in. You can see that these doors, these are the egress doors that you'll see inside of the last pod that we'll be touring. You can see how they're kind of rusted, kind of falling apart a bit. This is where the window units were that they put in. You can just see generally that the outside of the building has gotten a little bit beyond its useful life. You can also see, for instance, on this gym door, that it is also beyond its useful life. It's got a bunch of rust, it's fallen apart. And you'll see up in the gym when we go in there, you'll see these are some of the panels we'll be talking about along the top of the gym when we get inside. Okay, we've moved to the inside of the building. And this is actually a gymnasium. The most important thing you want to think of in a gymnasium for a school is how to get the kids out in case there's a fire or in case of some kind of emergency. The door that we came in right there, there's one door, it's a double door. All the way down at that end is another double door. And then back there we have one more exit. That is actually enough exits. They're supposed to have 3. The thing they're missing out on is that each one of those exits is supposed to go into a separate fire area. That means if there's a fire out in the hallway and the hallway decides to fill with smoke, they at least have one more way to get out. And so we would be suggesting that they need to not only put some fire doors in the hallway to section it off, but also where you see all this wood here, we want that to be a 2-hour fire rated construction. So if there is a fire, this room is protected for 2 hours. Now when we were outside, we talked a lot about the windows at the top of the structure. You can see on the one side, there are still some windows left. Not very many. You can see a lot of them have been put up with plywood. As you go around the building, you can see that the rest of them have just been completely covered over because they've fallen apart. This is because the structure up here that I'm showing you has been moving way too much. It's also affecting the exterior walls. I don't know if you're going to be able to see on this video, but if you look back up in this corner, you're going to see that there's a lot of cracking. Whenever you see a 45-degree crack, that's telltale for meaning that the wall is moving in a way that we don't want it to. All buildings do move. We design them to move. We don't want them to move in the way that we don't want them to move. We have to tell them how to move. And this one's moving in a way it's not being told how to move. Okay, we're actually out of the second door that I showed you in the gymnasium. I just want to show you a little bit more. You can get a little bit closer to this cracking that's happening down here. If you can see that crack, you can see that one nice and close. Again, at the 45-degree angle that I was telling you about, that means the whole wall is shifting a little bit off the foundation. You can walk around the building and see that the foundation has several areas where it has continued to crack. The other thing I want you to notice is there's about 800 people in that gymnasium that I'm showing you. If we calculate, there's about 300 people coming out this set of double doors. So they come over here to this hallway to get out. That hallway is only 5 feet wide. We want it to be at least 8 feet wide for that number of people coming out to get out this set of double doors. So this hallway essentially needs to be widened. What happened here was that this was what we called a California style building, where they had a bunch of different buildings that were connected with these covered walkways. You can see the roof deck that was there, and they closed them in. And once they closed them in, they just basically closed up where there were sidewalks, and it was not wide enough really for what we want. There are exits. I don't want anybody to think it's unsafe. An analogy that I've been telling everybody as I do these walkthroughs is when we were kids and learned how to ride a bike, we didn't wear helmets, most of us, if you're my age or older, but our kids now do, and that's because we know better. And what we want for our kids is when we know better, we want to protect them better. So I don't want anybody thinking the kids are unsafe here. We just know better ways to do it now. Something that we did notice as we were walking through is, let's see if we can get a good angle on this, that window kind of falls down towards the middle. It made us look inside the classroom, and no, they don't have a gerbil as a pet. They had a little bit of a termite infestation. They already knew about it about 8 years ago, and they treated the termites, and so that's been taken care of. But we want to make sure that this wall stays in place if there's a fire so the kids can get out safely. So we need to rebuild this area to make sure that it doesn't collapse during a fire. This was good. They have exits down at the end of this hallway for the kids to be able to get out. We're in what we call a classroom pod. There's 3 classroom pods. But out here you'll see there's a stoop. It's settled a little bit. It's cracked. Needs replaced. We would also love to see a sidewalk that it connects to so the kids getting out have somewhere to go. Okay, now we're headed back in the hallway. There's the door that we looked outside the gym, so you know where we're at. We just came back out of the pod. And you'll see along this hallway there are a bunch of coats that are hung along the hallway. It's discouraged to hang coats in hallways for a few reasons, because it encourages people to hang around, which means this hallway is going to get very congested. Also, obviously, a fire hazard. If there's a fire, it's going to spread a lot faster if you have a lot of cloth hanging around. You are allowed by code to have coats in the hallway if it's wide enough, and this hallway has not been widened sufficiently to hang coats in the hallway. Something that we'll talk about here a little bit. When we looked outside, you can't see out the windows because it's nice and foggy, but see all the paneling that we talked about earlier? What they did was, that was not very efficient. And they soon discovered that we live in Illinois and it's a little bit colder here, and that wasn't quite the construction that was going to make them have good energy bills. So they came over here, and you can see where they filled in. They came inside of the panels that you see out there, and they put wood, and they put some insulation, and they put some gypboard, and they tried to make their school much more efficient, which was a really good move. What it did was, we ended up putting wood in the building. And when you put wood in the building, you change the construction type. And wood, as we all know, burns very well. And so what we need here is we need to be able to divide this school up into 4 fire areas. So that essentially if a fire breaks out in one area, then the kids would be able to get into another area and be safer since wood is flammable. Now we also have a bunch of these ventilation areas cut into the doors. You're allowed to have louvers. They're only allowed to be a certain height. That's because if a fire broke out, which you can see this is a custodian's closet, which has, wow, lots of chemicals, probably lots of paper, lots of things that can catch fire. And we want that to be as low as possible so smoke doesn't come out and get into the hallway. All the louvers, you can see they're in the bathrooms, different places. All the louvers in this building actually do exceed the required height, so those doors need to be replaced. You also see in this hallway, as always happens in hallways, the flooring is the worst in the hallway because there's lots and lots and lots of kids. You see lots of areas like this that obviously have been patched, and the janitors and everyone have tried to keep track and try to keep this floor up to date as much as possible, but pretty soon it's all just going to get to the end of its useful life and need to be replaced. Normally flooring costs some, but the fact of the matter is with a lot of this flooring, it's asbestos flooring. Again, don't want anybody to be concerned about asbestos. Asbestos is not harmful to you unless it's ground up into a little powder and thrown up into the air so that you can inhale it. So the fact that there's asbestos in this building should not alarm anyone, but what it means is that it's going to be costly to remove and replace this. Also, below all these hallways that we're going through, we're going into the second pod right now, by the way. There's a bunch of tunnels. that have all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, piping in them. And in those tunnels, of course, asbestos is a very good insulator, and they knew that back in the 60s, and it's all over it. So hence, these tunnels, they're not actually allowed to go into anymore because there's so much asbestos down there. Our engineer has told us that this system, the plumbing system, is going to have to be replaced within the next 10 years. That means somebody's going to have to get down there and get all this asbestos out. Again, highly expensive problem to have. Now, we are in the pod that we walked by outside when I showed you the rebar, the steel that was sticking out of the concrete. In this classroom, this is the classroom, this is the wall right there that you saw with the rebar coming out of it. The teacher was very gracious to show me that there was a little bit of an issue. Sometimes you can talk about a sloped floor. You can actually see that on video, which is pretty significant if you can actually see something on a little video like this. The whole floor just slopes this way. The whole building has just settled this way because that foundation is failing. So that's something that needs repaired. Okay, I'll pick you guys back up on the third pod.